Collector, the second installment in this series of Gran Turismo 7 teasers, has dropped, and while not quite as spicy potentially as the first one in terms of news, there are still some talking points here. But first of all, just for those of you who weren't aware, yes, this is going to be a series of teasers. On the Spanish version of the PlayStation YouTube channel, the previous trailer that we got last week was titled as Episode 1, which obviously indicates that there were more to come, and we've got our second one. But also within these little interview-style teasers, Kaz has been talking about certain cornerstones of car culture, and it seems as though these teasers are going to revolve around each one of those, of course with this one being titled Collector. Now, the first thing that I want to mention, relating to that topic, is the kind of vague quote about the amount of cars that we're going to get at launch. He said over 400 cars. Now, the number 420 was floating about before, but this one just says over 400, which indicates to me that the number perhaps isn't quite finalised yet, and I wouldn't be too worried about it. Maybe it's a bit less than I was expecting, and I'm sure many others were too, but I think it's going to be in the mid 400s range by the time we get the game, and of course we know they're going to be updates anyway. So that was one thing I wanted to address quickly, but for the main talking point really, it's the Teased track this time, which appears to be Apricot Hill. Of course, another fan favourite original circuit. This one appeared first in Gran Turismo 2, and then carried on through the franchise, skipping Gran Turismo 5, and of course Gran Turismo Sport. But it seems as though with this teaser, the track layout and the lines being shown on the screen most closely match Apricot Hill, maybe with a few reworkings and tightenings of some corners. Now, I want to add that this one is less clear than the return of Deep Forest was, because there seem to be a few missing pieces, but I'll be very surprised if it is not Apricot Hill. And also near the end of the first trailer, and during parts of this one, it seems as though it's highly likely we're also going to see the return of Grand Valley Speedway. It seems as though Polyphony are really playing into this admittedly very clever marketing strategy, letting the fans figure this out with the hashtag #FindYourLine that appeared on this trailer. Now, for the other new stuff, or talking points I should say, because aside from that track news, no new cars were shown in this trailer, just some better visual confirmation of cars we've already seen, and a couple of cars that we've seen in motion for the first time. Now, from the last trailer, we saw the 964 generation Porsche 911 Carrera Rs, which was just on that scrolling car list, but now we get a better look at it in the game. Moving on though, we have the first time that we see moving the 1952 Mercedes 300 SL race car, which was going down the straight at Lasart, and perhaps most excitingly, the 1938 Alfa Romeo 8C, which first appeared in that first trailer back in June of 2020. We were unsure about that car because of the vintage of it, so to speak, that we didn't know if it was just going to be a museum piece or an actual drivable car, but in this trailer we see it going around Goodwood, the motor circuit, so that's good to see. I'm kind of excited to drive that car, if I ever get the credits for it, because doubtless it will be very expensive. And just to add another note about that Alfa Romeo quickly, contrary to what I thought and a few other people did as well, contributing to this misconception, it's not actually the car that won Pebble Beach. That was a different vintage Alfa Romeo, but this one was just a car that was at Pebble Beach that happened to capture Kaz's attention while he was there, which is kind of cool. If just a simple sighting like that inspired the car's inclusion in the game and all the effort that entailed. But we're going to stick with Alfa Romeo for the final car that I want to talk about, which is one we've already seen again, but it's the 155 Dtm Car. We see this in the menu of the game this time, instead of a blink and you'll miss it moment on Tri Mountain, which was in the September trailer. As expected, it's looking very pretty, but the main thing to discuss here is its category. We know performance points are returning, and seeming to be working in tandem now with the group classes from Gran Turismo Sport, and this Alfa is in Group 4, which on the face of it makes sense because it's a touring car and that's where the touring car style cars go in Group 4, but it is a bit of a stretch. Now, people have had a lot of ideas about what to do with that class system and making different classes for the different eras of cars. I mean, that's a particularly prevalent problem in Group 1, where you've got Group Cs from the late 80s and early 90s with bang up to date LMP cars. But at the end of the day, I don't think that making new classes is the best solution, because that way it's going to get convoluted, and some of those classes that you'd be forced to create are going to have very few cars in them and just not going to be used that often at all in practice. So, to be honest, I think the best solution for the complaints people are having are just to use the performance point system mostly, but when it comes to categories, of course certain cars will go together, like most of the Group 3 class makes sense racing against one another, there aren't too many outliers, but if you're going to shoehorn a car into a class, make it a more open event, say in the career mode or the GT mode, as it will be in GT7, but for the rest of it, I just kind of use common sense and have parameters in the game where it restricts you to a certain amount of cars. For example, since we have a decent selection, if you want to do a Group 1 race, maybe it could be restricted in some cases to just the Group C cars like the Sauber C9 and the Mazda 787B. Of course, balance of performance is there for a reason, but I do get people's complaints, although I don't think that some of the solutions people are suggesting are perhaps the best. But that's just a quick thing I wanted to discuss. But that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you're looking forward to in the future trailers and what they might touch on. Of course, Apricot Hill is coming back, and I think I'm going to make a prediction list or even a wish list for more tracks I'd like to see in GT7. Let me know some of yours as well. But, yep, that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.